Hi everyone and welcome to this DCD talk. I'm James Raddings, Digital Portfolio Lead here at DCD, and today we'll be talking about a new definition of speed to power. Thank you very much to Rowan Digital for sponsoring this, and I'm delighted to be joined by Patrick Dillow, who's Vice President of Energy and Water over at Rowan Digital. So great to be with you, Patrick. To start us off, can you give us a bit of an update on what's happening at Rowan Digital at the moment, projects, priorities and market trends that you're seeing?
Sure. Thanks for having me, James. It's been a busy year at Rowan. We've had a lot of projects move forward in different stages of our pipeline. As you can tell, the energy industry has been pretty active with all sorts of legislative and policy change, trying to find power wherever we can. For Rowan and the energy team, we've been focused on our flagship campuses in Texas and Maryland, continue to advance our projects there that are in the late stage, getting those energized, as well as continuing to grow and expand our development pipeline. We've been trying to tackle all the changing utility process changes, such as new interconnection study requirements or batch cluster study processes going on across all the different RTOs and markets. So we've been trying to, work flexibly with those and in an agile way to make sure that we're staying successful and relevant to our customers throughout the process.
Perfect. So, speed to power, it's something that comes up time and time again across the industry. From your perspective, what are some of the biggest factors that determine, essentially whether a project moves forward quickly or gets delayed? And I suppose where can developers have most influence over those outcomes?
Developers have the most influence in our site selection strategy. Finding the right power from the very beginning, identifying the right types of infrastructure requirements, and bringing those ingredients together for a good, solid power strategy is where we can shape this story the most. From there, we have to make sure we partner well with our utilities and their associates and their project teams to make sure that we're working through the development and construction process appropriately to make sure that we are going to energize on time. I'd say the biggest factors that determine whether that project moves quickly beyond the ingredients of the site itself are having a willing utility partner that we can work through their interconnection study process, and then making sure that we're de-risking any issues such as permitting requirements or shared scope for construction, and getting those equipment purchases out of the way early.
Yeah, and Bauxite One has been a really good example of where those principles and practices have been applied. Looking back on that project, what were some of the key enablers that made that timeline possible? And I suppose looking back as well, what were some of the lessons that you learned from that which can be applied moving forward?
Like I mentioned in the previous question, we have the most influence in where we choose a site, and that was a key example with Bauxite One. It's actually on existing, or it has existing lines running through the property that we were able to interconnect with, working with the utility, in that case, First Energy. And we were able to then work quickly through the interconnection process, identifying the capacity. And then on the other side of that, we worked with our customers to understand what they were looking for beyond just speed to power. So kind of everything coming together in one solid strategy that allowed us to deliver quickly, avoiding additional regulatory risks, and working with the utility to make sure that we've got the right sort of equipment in place and giving them what they needed in order to develop and construct the site.
Nice. And we hear a lot in the industry as well about, balancing speed, sustainability and reliability, and those sort of metrics are almost seen as competing. Do you think they are competing, or are there examples, where you can progress all of those in tandem?
Sometimes it feels like they're competing, but if you zoom out, you can actually find balance across the life cycle of the project. Sometimes we're looking for acceleration strategies that may optimize for speed. However, as the strategy changes, whether it's an islanded solution that becomes a grid or behind the meter solution later on, then changes how those characteristics are balanced across the strategy. So we're not just looking at one singular strategy, but rather multiple strategies that come together depending on the location, the market structure, and ultimately what our customers are looking for or willing to accept as we work through those strategies. I'd say the reliability really comes through towards the back end, and where we can optimize for speed and sustainability in the front end.
Yeah. Nice. And with, demand for AI ready capacity, that's, growing at a crazy rate at the moment. What do you think developers are doing right at the moment? And I suppose where do you see some of the potential bottlenecks or blind spots?
What we're getting right is getting the technologies and the locations and the processes started. We know we have to either get in interconnection queues or talking to utilities to make sure we've got a path to power defined. We also know we need to get ahead of the long lead equipment and the supply chain constraints we've seen over the last few years. That's what we're doing right. I think where we're seeing the biggest risks or blind spots is as we continue to try and piece these strategies together and actually turn them into commercial solutions that work for our customers. We're evaluating and finding where new risks are emerging that we weren't really considering or hadn't thought about before, whether it's in delivery schedule or whether those new technologies can fail or perform in the way that they're expected to. And I'd say, in addition to that, is really getting ahead of the new rate structures and changes that are happening across the country, as there's a national push to make sure that data centers pay their way. We want to make sure that we're part of that solution and making sure that we're not exposing ourselves or the rest of the industry and other developers to any risks there that we can get ahead of with our utilities.
Yeah. Nice. So just talking to people nice and early on and getting everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. When projects are focused almost like have blinkers on sometimes just to accelerate delivery, where are some of the natural potential trade-offs that occur there, and other areas where moving too quickly can potentially cause some issues down the line?
I think what I've seen a lot in the last few months and honestly year is a push for using thermal generation technologies, whether that's gas or diesel, to provide prime power ahead of the grid. That obviously will trigger additional air permitting requirements and concerns for air emissions, and that can be counter to your sustainability targets that either the developer or the customer is looking for, just for the sake of power. So I think it's not just power as the solution as well, it's a whole data center package. So you have to think about access to fiber, access to water, and actually being in a location that the hyperscaler or neoscaler customers are going to want to be with their compute or AI workloads. So you have to think about that circumspectively. You can't just say, I have fast power here, therefore I can build a data center here.
Yeah. So that leads on nicely actually to what, I suppose, how would you define what a successful data project is, and how do you think that might change over the next couple of years? Because there's so many metrics, benchmarks, indicators that developers are looking at now. Do you see that progressing?
A successful data center is going to bring all of those ingredients together, not just power. However, the power is the key ticket in terms of timeline. If you have a fast path to power that is bankable and you have strong confidence and can take on that delivery risk appropriately, either as a developer or the end customer themselves, that's where you're going to differentiate yourself as being successful, having a successful data center project. Throughout this last year as well, we've seen a lot of community engagement also pick up. So Rowan has always, from the start, been involved very deeply with our communities, offering open houses, having very public websites for our projects, and we will continue to do that. So we're well positioned from the start to work well with our communities and be a partner along the way, not becoming an objector or counterparty in the process.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point as well. And I think the key to that is transparency, isn't it? It's not just kind of a big wall where no one really knows what's going on behind it, and having that engagement nice and early, it bears fruit further down the project lifecycle.
That's right.
If you were advising a developer, breaking ground on, let's say, a new hyperscale campus today, what would you tell them? What would be some of the top priorities for the first year to really set a solid foundation?
Your top priorities, I've kind of referred to through the other questions, are going to be making sure you have the right location, getting the ingredients there, proximity to available capacity or under construction capacity, finding the right developable land, being in a region where your customers want to be, and also now being in communities that are supportive and want to be good partners and bring that additional economic development to their regions. So in your first year, you're going to want to build those relationships really, really well, whether it's with the utilities, with your customers or with the local community. You want to make sure that you've got partnership along the way, and to your point, in your words, singing to the same sheet of music and same hymn.
Yeah. Perfect, nice. But yeah, I mean, well, thank you so much for your time today, Patrick, and thank you to Rowan Digital for sponsoring this session as well. Thank you everyone as well for watching at home, and if there's anything that we've discussed today, please do reach out to either myself or Patrick, and I'm sure the team over at Rowan Digital will be happy to have a chat with you and carry on the conversation. But thanks very much, Patrick, and look forward to staying in touch and seeing how it all plays out.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you having me.